Well, good evening, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin, and welcome to a special Mindfields tonight. Really a remarkable thing happening in my life this weekend, which is I get to return to the stage and sing. And it was something I took up at the age, I think about 50, 54, 55. Anyway, it was about 15 years ago. So I was already, in my 50s and had never uh, thought of myself as potentially a singer or a singer, somebody that could actually uh, perform on stage and make a nice sound because I had never felt comfortable with my voice ever. And it seemed like a kind of a miracle happened to me, and I'll tell you about that tonight. Thanks for joining me. We are live on Rumble tonight, also on McDuff Lives 2, which is I guess I got about 2,000 subscribers on there, and I've been shied away from it because I got two strikes a few months ago. But we can broadcast there tonight. Won't be saying anything controversial, so feel free to join me on McDuff Lives too. Also on Facebook, and thank you for all my Facebook fans, and thanks for spreading the word that we are definitely on Facebook. And Facebook has been very friendly to me. The only thing people say is, you can't build a big audience there because they will, once you get to a certain point, they will throttle you back. I don't know. Anyway, let's get back to the fun part because I'm in kind of I have now got to the point where I'm sure that I don't have any problems with the score. I can sing it, and we've had two dress rehearsals, and things have, the things that need to get fixed are getting fixed. And I just learned about the venue we're going to be in on Sunday. And by the way, I'm not singing tomorrow night. I know on the poster it says there's a show tomorrow night, but it's not the full production, and so I won't be participating in that one. But the first show I'm in is Sunday, a matinee at 2:30 p.m. in Ewing Township, Pennsylvania, which is a part of Trenton, just across the river from Philadelphia. A very beautiful venue called the 1867 Sanctuary. It's a old church that has been made into a beautiful acoustics, and that means a lot as a singer, and also it means a lot to you as an audience. I'll take a second, and I'm just going to speak off the cuff tonight, but I do want to thank George Webb for doing a space tonight that really touched me. He and I were together for a number of years back from 2017, 2018, 2019. Actually, no, maybe it was even more than that. I think, yeah. Anyway, there came a time that we went in different directions, and as things happened, sooner or later we got back in touch, and I've been talking to him on his Twitter, and I'm really excited about his research. He's doing some really good stuff on digging, as he always does, into stuff that nobody else has dug up yet, and it's a remarkable thing to see George's work product. Of course, his Twitter handle is George Webb, investigative journalist, and you can find him there. He's been pretty much kicked off of YouTube and most of the big platforms, so uh, find him where you can, and Twitter is a good spot for that. Anyway, he did a real nice space tonight talking about La Boheme, and it's always remarkable to me how well-rounded George is in his knowledge of things that you wouldn't expect, a basketball jock to know about. But aside from being a star athlete, and aside from being a computer networking master, he's also got a lot of chops in things like literature and in music, and so he can go deep with that stuff as well as his normal fare. So thanks, George, and just for the record, I am not performing tomorrow night. So that'll be, I am performing Sunday, the 29th in the matinee. Then the next weekend is in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And then the closing performance is in Beach Haven, New Jersey on Long Beach Island. And that's the one to go to if you can. It's on the 18th at, I think, 8 p.m. The Surflight Theater is already has tickets on sale. Blocks of tickets have already been purchased. So I think it's going to sell out. It's if you want to come, and I really think you should come if you can, on the 18th of November, Saturday night. Well, that's the end of the advertisement, and I wanted to talk about why acoustics and why opera, and it's not what you think. I mean, most people have a fleeting understanding of opera that and seen parts of it, and there's some gorgeous stuff. You've probably know the arias from La Boheme, and from a number of other Puccini pieces. The great Nessun Dorma, right? And even if you just watch it on YouTube, it'll send chills down your spine. And that's what I want to talk about, is those chills down your spine. Where does that come from? The uh, the the technique of opera singing is is kind of magical in a way. You can contrast it to pop singing and musical theater singing, mainly when you notice the vibrato. And what is vibrato but a wave, a sine wave? That the sine wave is actually carrying the words, just like a radio wave carries the words. The sine wave that we create in our voice is there because it conveys the words, the music, by by the frequency. And of course, that frequency will just go on and on. So you're not limited to the power of your voice. You're not limited to how hard you can push or how big you can open your throat. Because, that you can yell, you can make a louder sound, but not for very long if you use your muscles to make a big projection. But the technique of opera and any kind of art song, in Italian bel canto is the style that we study, is frequencies. Now, who's been more interested in frequencies lately than this group? We're all about frequencies, right? My good friend Carmadoc is really into the wrist band that you can get a frequency, a vibration that can help you to maintain your concentration, to go to sleep, to work, to all kinds of things. Because we are recognizing that we are frequencies, we are energy, we are made up of vibrations. So now you see what the magic is that I'm not having to push all this air at you so that you can hear me, 100 feet away. Because if I use that technique, then that wave is going to magically carry it over there for you. And, from there, singers can pick up on certain acoustical qualities of the hall itself. You might show up early and walk around and sing in the different spots and say, okay, I'm going to mark this spot right here because it just the whole hall can resonate when I sing. So this idea of frequencies, listening to YouTube channels that have frequencies on them to help you relax or for health reasons. It's very much like what we've been reading, some of us, about cathedrals and how cathedrals are possibly a kind of a receiver thing for getting waves from the universe, and by the symmetrical shapes and different measurements and however they built these amazing cathedrals, not only do you get a good acoustics, you also get energy. So again, the idea of using waves, using the frequencies that exist already to power something, that's ancient technology that a lot of people, and my good friend Corky Goss likes to talk about. So when we started using electronic means to amplify the voice, a big change happens. A huge change happens. No longer do you need to sing in an operatic style to reach thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. And there comes Bing Crosby. Now, Bing Crosby is a beautiful singer, don't get me wrong, but that is the beginning of microphone technique, which people like Frank Sinatra, you notice, you might notice some nice, wavy vibrato, it's beautiful singing, of course, but there is not that intentional projection of that frequency. Now, why should you come and listen to a bunch of people sing in an enclosed space where the sound is just going to penetrate into you? Well, maybe it's because something in you knows that you need those frequencies. And the singers are different ranges so that you get different frequencies. And then the piano or the orchestra, if there is one, are going to be providing you different frequencies and different colors and different combinations of frequencies and different arrangements of how many high notes, how many low notes. The whole thing, it's not just to admire it like a painting on the wall. It is alive. It is just alive as the cells in our body. And that vibration, that's frequency, is something that we need. And some of these frequencies are going to help us to open up our emotions. And you don't have to understand Italian to know that somebody is in love, or to know that somebody has been jilted, or to know that somebody is dying. The vibrations will tell you, as well as the stage presence. And when you participate as the audience, and the audience is always part of the show, then you are allowing yourself to open up your own frequencies, and sympathetic interaction happens. Sympathetic frequencies, sympathetic vibrations, sympathy with the tragedy, or a sense of joy with the happiness, or the relief that a great laugh gives us if there's comedy. And though they might be said in a different century, a different country, a different language from your own, That's not what's important. What's important is that you get that feeling. Then, on top of that, you'll actually find yourself being swept away by the amazing things that these singers can do. Just wait till you hear Marcello, the baritone, when he really opens up. Um, the the two sopranos are going to be fabulous. Mimi, the La Boheme, the Bohemian woman, and Musetta, who completes the foursome and provides a terrific comedic interlude. These are world-class singers. You will be thrilled to hear them. And I'm not talking about just loud, I'm talking about gorgeous and sensitive and emotionally connecting. The kind of things that people used to understand why you would go to an opera before you could just kick back and turn on the radio. Isn't it amazing, though, that you can look at this whole thing as part of the cultural destruction of Western civilization by the financial powers that want to, break us down into serfdom again? Mimi, she in the opera will die at the end. You know that. And what does she die of? She dies of consumption. What is consumption? Well, we know now it's called tuberculosis. They called it consumption. Woody Guthrie called it the old TB. People died of consumption all the time in the 19th century. And there you are in Paris, rainy, cold, no heat. It's a perfect setup for you catching tuberculosis. So it's going to happen. That's the life of La Boheme. The opera shows the intense humanity of people who are living in that bohemian style, that lifestyle. It almost looks attractive until you realize they're all going to die in their 30s. They're all going to die young. And they're not going to have success in life. Their successes are going to be when they get some food, or when they fall in love, or when they have a child, or when something good happens. But it's not going to be a rise into the upper classes story. So, and as George was saying in his space today, the idea of bohemian, goes back into the early 19th century. And by the time you get to Hemingway, the idea of bohemian is changed a bit. But essentially, what we're talking about is people who accept the idea and just live in the idea that they're never going to make it in the big society. They don't even want to. They've decided that I'm out. I'm going to be one of the people that just doesn't participate. I'm not expecting any, you know, Social Security, health care. I don't need a job. I'm going to make it somehow as what? Well, as an artist, of course. A proper bohemian is an artist that values the art more than they value money, more than they value their dinner. They are committed to being an oil painter, or being a musician, being a dancer, being a singer, being an author, a playwright, like Marcello. I mean, like Rodolfo. Marcello is a painter. Rodolfo, the other male lead, is a writer. And as the play goes along, his great opus is sacrificed into the fireplace because they are so cold. They're willing to burn his art. But that's it. Is you have to have a deep commitment to some of art. You have to live on a complete day-to-day basis. Baba Ram Dass, be here now. That's it. Just be here now. Milk the moment for everything you can. And the friends that you have are your family. They are people just like you that you're going to do whatever you can to help them, even though none of you have any resources. So that's the Bohemian idea. It doesn't have much to do with the country of Bohemia, which is part of the Czech Republic now, except for that, as I have studied the history of it, the first Bohemians were actually gypsies. And the gypsies that ended up in France generally came from Bohemia. So the gypsies were called Bohemians. And this develops, over many decades to the point where people that live like gypsies are Bohemians. So that's the sense of it in those days. Now, have you ever heard of a place called Bohemian Grove? It makes a lot of sense when you consider Bohemians are not going to care about yesterday or tomorrow. They have that emblem of the spider, weaving his thoughts, and don't let the spider invade your mind and mess up your day because you are here in the Bohemian Grove. So be a Bohemian, you know, wear a nice comfy V-neck sweater like Bill Gates, sit around with George Shultz and do whatever you want to with the other guys at night. You can let go, walk on the wild side. We don't care. It's all good. Except for Richard Nixon wasn't too pleased with that part of it, but you know, he's a quirky guy anyway. Pardon me. So, which brings me to the present state of the world economy, and with particular interest to the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, their spokesperson, who has never ever paid any attention to English diction in his life, who doesn't care that he sounds like some old Nazi from the movies. He is going to just be himself and tell you that you will own nothing and you will be happy. In other words, you're going to live in a garret in Paris with 4 other guys, and nobody's going to be able to afford the coal for the heater. And then you're going to live a short, unhappy life. You're probably going to get worked to death. And, but maybe we'll give you some drugs and you'll think you're happy. Matter of fact, if you do really good work, we'll give you even better drugs and you'll be really happy. And you won't live from worrying about, yesterday or the legacy of World War II or what happened to your father. You won't even know who your father was. You won't care. You will be living so in the present. You will be happy as a lamb. You will be happy as a clam. You will be happy as a newborn puppy that finds the tits. You will be so thrilled all day long, every day of your life, until we decide we don't need you anymore. And then we'll euthanize you, and you won't even know about that either. Well, you know how it works. I mean, you've been working in the United States. You know where they have the big farms, the CAFOs, the cattle farms. And then the meat plants and the packing. You know how that works. I mean, it's just you guys got to understand that you ain't nothing different from any other animal. So it's a funny thing, isn't it? The idea that the people that the Vulcans, that think they run the world, would go off to a place called Bohemian Grove to find their peace of mind. Very much like Shakespeare, Henry V, when Henry's complaining about, how he has to worry about everything, and your common soldier, he doesn't have any worries at all. Of course he doesn't. You don't tell him where he's going. You don't give him enough food. You don't, he's completely just dependent upon the superiors in the army. So it's the same idea that you think of, that you see people thinking of in eugenics, in racism generally, that those lower races, they don't really think about the past or the future. They're just right there in the present all the time. Those people, there's just too many of them. That's the problem. Well, if you don't cure consumption, then they're going to self-limit. But then along comes Robert Koch, Koch, in 1884 in Germany. And he finds a little bug, a little bacterium. And he says, aha, I have isolated this little bug by filtering it enough that I can say, here it is. I can even show it to people and say, I have found the agent that causes consumption, or what we call tuberculosis. And therefore, we can end it. We can fix it. And while sadly tuberculosis still exists all over the world, we have to give credit to the scientists like Robert Koch that were able to solve the riddle of, what is it? Where did it come from? And how can we get rid of it? And most places in the world, it's completely gone. If Woody Guthrie were contemporaneous with me, he wouldn't die. Mimi wouldn't die. Population of the world would probably be twice what it is now if they had solved it in 1840 instead of 1884. And the elimination of so many diseases by the good scientists, the ones that go by strict scientific method. And then what happens? Well, Robert Koch Institute, he's famous. His name is all over the place. But what goes on in these institutes? Well, the Rockefellers come in and they say, well, Robert Koch, he had a pretty good idea how to define, a virus, and we can't actually meet those 4 criteria to prove that we found a virus. But of course, because they're so small anyway, we just have to assume that when we see these symptoms or this activity, that we are going to call it a virus. And that's, Thomas Milton Rivers, and then he in his Naval Medical Research Unit, and they proceed that everything is a virus, even though they don't meet Robert Koch's postulates. And isn't it interesting now that we are finding in many cases that people have made different assumptions about cancer. The cancer is not a mystery like consumption was anymore. We're finding that it's not a condition that just happens to you because you're unlucky or you got bad genes. No, it's much more likely that it has something to do with your metabolism. And these agents called antiparasiticals have proven to be very effective in many cases, just in anecdotal talk, not in terms of any studies that have been formally published. And there's where I think it's an interesting idea. Do they want us all to go back into the attics in the winter and freeze together until we get sick and die? Is that what they want? Well, let's see what you guys think. I see there's some activity over here on the chat room. And good evening to you. All the sun, hey, thanks for joining me. End of days is here, and thanks for singing, John. Yeah, well, I'm thrilled. I was going to talk about my dad, and thanks for reminding me. Let me stop there and do this. Now, my dad, this guy, I have a little light for him now. I forgot to turn it on. He grew up in Hartford, Connecticut as a kind of a 6th child in a 5-child family because his parents got a divorce, and the grandparents, Tom's father's parents, got custody of him. So he lived with his father's, and there was 5 of them that were the children, And so he was like the sixth child, only he was actually a grandchild. And he grew up in this kind of a lace curtain, upwardly mobile Irish Catholic family that didn't want to talk about their Irish roots. So they wanted to integrate into the New England world and be successful. And so he had an uncle that was working at the very important insurance company called the Hartford Fire Insurance Company. And there were connections to people. And somehow Tom got sent to Loomis Academy, and then he went to Harvard. And he was basically exposed to a lot of classical music as he grew up. And that's a very different experience than somebody that might grow up in an Irish family at the same time that was cognizant of its roots and enjoying being Irish and singing and playing the fiddle and doing all the things that I like to do now. So no, he didn't have that. In matter of fact, that whole Irishness was not at all part of his life. Instead, there were classical records and trips to concerts. And when they could, my dad did go to the Met a few times. So I have his records. I have 33 RPM records, cases of records of different operas and symphonies and things like that he collected. He had a small record collection of those old, heavy, thick ones that unfortunately break very easily. But those old LPs, I've still got, maybe 20 of them or so. So he had opera LPs that he collected, and he also had when he went to Harvard, he would go to see the Boston Pops, and so he had a couple of albums of them doing the 1812 Overture, the Hungarian dances, the Slavonic dances, the ones that are really accessible to children, and we kind of got the Mozart effect a bit when he would play his records. And so I really liked it. I identified that classical sound with my dad, and when I went to college, I actually took a couple years of piano lessons. He died as I was in my first year there, but I kept up with the piano lessons for a couple of years, and then stopped, and the music stopped for a few years while I had to finish college and then go to law school. But when I was in law school, I started finding places to play, and I played music. Played a lot of like country dance music, traditional Irish, traditional New England dance music, contra dances, and quadrilles, and square dances, and waltzes, and polkas, and all kinds of fun folk dance music that we did in the Washington area during the late 70s and all through the 80s and 90s. But I had never known that I had a voice. I really didn't. I would listen to people, like the rock and roll singers, and they would sing with those high notes, and I said, I sound awful. I can't do that. And um, but I ran into Paul Robeson's um, beautiful singing. He's a great bass, of course, one of the greatest basses of all times. And so I got a CD of his and started driving around in the car with it. I was, being a lawyer, I had a lot of driving all the time, and so I sing along with this great singer, Paul Robeson, and I thought, well, maybe I'm a bass, maybe I'm not actually a rock and roll singer. I could be a bass. And so, by happenstance, Marcia knew a lady that was a voice teacher and connected me, and the voice teacher took me into her studio, and then the next thing you know, I was singing a major role in the Magic Flute. I became Zarastro, and how I got that role, I just find it's amazing. I mean, I was I, I was asked to be in the chorus, and then the next thing I knew, they promoted me to one of the stars of the show, and so I got to do that, and then uh, I started, taking it seriously and really wanting to be a singer. And so as my I was able to wind down my law practice, I started having more opportunities. I got to sing in Austria and in Italy and in a number of places up in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, as you know from this company. And it was something that I really felt was going to be a career for me, a second career. I'm in my 50s. I'm healthy. I can do this. And I did. I did 10 years of solid. I'm going to be an opera singer. And then the cancer hit, and it just stopped me in my tracks. I was unable to do it. I just didn't have the energy, and I had to, go to the radiation and all the appointments and everything, and it just kept me exhausted, and I didn't sing, I didn't travel, I didn't do much, and then right after that is COVID, so there was no opportunities. But this spring, um, uh, my good friend Catherine Foster, who's the director and the pianist of this little company called Center Stage Opera in Pennsylvania, uh, she let me know that she was going to do La Boheme, and that's one role that I never did, was the bass role in La Boheme. I said I'd love to do that. So I asked her, would she uh, possibly be interested in me singing that? And she said, absolutely. You're in. And as soon as I took that gig, then I don't know, maybe a month or two later is when I get my bad news and the cancer's back. And, it made me very sad and very angry. And I've expressed it in my Substack. If you're not aware of my Substack, it's all free. You don't have to. It says, you can subscribe. You don't have to pay though. Just watch it, because I'm expressing myself in there in terms of how I really feel and how I felt when I got the news, how I have been reacting since then, and then my wonderful experiences with the the people who are supporting me with seeking the real good treatments, the ones that the allopaths don't talk about. And you can look at my Substack if you want to know the details. What am I doing? What am I taking? Why? And who am I working with? But you can also watch my series, the series that Nick Pitofsky put together and brought together a whole team of people and calls it Team O'Loughlin. And he put together the shows. We have 7 of them now, called Exploring Wellness, and they are available, of course, in my archives on Rumble and BitChute, as well as on McDuff Lives 3, I believe they're on. So that's the thing about my dad, is this, this is me doing this for him. I want to just say, hey, Dad, see what I'm doing. I'm doing this for you, and expressing, his commitment, his love of cultural music, and adopting that as my own, and feeling, that not only am I getting the good, healthy vibrations, the resonance that comes from singing, and the singing of others, and the acoustics bouncing back at me, and the sense that I'm doing something that I really wanted to do. It's a spiritual thing. Nobody's making any money in these productions, by the way. And let me tell you, don't come all dressed up in an evening gown. This is real opera in the sense of what it used to be a long time ago, before it became the Met and the LA Opera and everything. Real opera is community theater. Real opera comes from the streets. Real opera goes back to the Middle Ages when uh, common people would put on little skits and but add singing to it and create characters. And there was a whole series of characters that were commonly um, played by the singers and the actors, and it's called Commedia dell'arte in Italy. And it went all over Europe, and then it spread into the nobility when they started seeing that they could attract people by by putting on a more professional performances. But what we're doing now, I think, really does bring it back to the popular level. You know, even with the extreme quality of the music, the story is a very simple, popular story, and it is geared to you, to me, to everybody. It's not about, you know, the king of this and the queen of that. This is about us, and you know, it's idealized in a way, but it will connect to you. So your life has that resonance, but perhaps you haven't been able to express it, or perhaps it just kind of lays dormant. But if you come into the space where all the singing is happening, then those frequencies will come into you and reinforce your frequencies, and then you will have an experience. You will be transformed. You will leave some stress or something behind, and you will bring something new with you that may not be able to express what it is, but it is a sense of having resonated in a hall with other people doing art as we are spiritual beings, all of our little atoms spinning around, not Lego pieces, spiritual beings. And so that's what opera is to me. And I think that's whether my dad could articulate it, that's what it was to him, was a lifting of the spirits and a communication with something eternal and deeper than we can really express in any other way. Well, I guess that's all I got for you tonight. Thanks very much for being with me. I'll join you tomorrow at 11 a.m. For chat. Uh, if I feel up to it, I don't know how much time I'll have free tomorrow, but anyway, I'm scheduled for 11, and I will see you then.